Welcome back, folks. Ali here, The Power of Space. I have a extremely special guest, Mr. Hemad Fadaifar, who is, among many things in life, my best friend. So we go back very, very, very deep. In fact, I was thinking about that this morning. You're one of the first friends I think I created in context of knowing like what a friend was, because I was 5 or 6 years old. Aside from that, though, Hamad just had a birthday, which is really interesting, which happens to be a day after my birthday. So this recording in itself is overdue, just because we've talked so many times in person, like, yo, we need to record this, or this should be a podcast. I'm excited. I'm nervous for this because a lot of times I interview people that are kind of in my world or came in via connections, network, the professional side, whereas you're one of the closest people in my life and one of the deepest people in my life that I still have a very strong connection with. So I will leave it with that and digress and say welcome. And how would you like to introduce yourself today, Hemad?
That was beautiful. Thank you. Gosh, this is interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like you're nervous. I'm sweating because I want to knock this out the park for you. And I know what you're going to say about that. Say, we have these conversations all the time, and that's
wait. What would I say? What would I say?
Say there is no knocking it out the park.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I know you a little bit. How do I want to introduce myself? Hemad Fadaifar. I just turned 37. Feeling 27. No. Yeah, just entrepreneur. Let me think. Older brother, Ellie's best friend. Just living the dream, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, go ahead.
In terms, no, something you said brought up. You're like the first friend that I actually remember, and when I see photos of us, old photos, we're like what when we met, 3, 4 years old. This is when I see these photos, I'm like, I vaguely remember this. Like you're the first friend that I can remember. So it's cool to be here doing this.
Totally, man. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to describe, is that like when I look at pictures, I'm like, oh shit, I remember like being on those ice skates or jumping off the couch playing charades when we were just young with our younger brothers. So yeah, we have that very deep friendship that I'm honored to have. And I was laughing. I had to control myself before we hit record because amongst other things, you have this amazing quality to make people smile and laugh, which is a powerful tool that I don't think a lot of people have. And I think it's so healthy for our souls, just laughing and being in the presence of someone who wants to bring that light in. And I had to contain my laughter because before we record, I was like, yo, are you ready? Like, did you use the bathroom? Did you drink some water? You're like, yep, I got water, Gatorade, apple, carrots. Like, what?
A red emergency button. Yes.
Red emergency button. Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
It's funny when you say, Hemad, you make people laugh. And I've spoken to you about this before, but it's nice to talk about it here. I ask myself, why I love making people smile and I love making people laugh. And I always ask, like, why? Where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer as of today, as of right this moment, is having Hassan, my little brother, as my audience. He's 1 year younger than me. We're inseparable. Having someone there constantly. He has been my audience. I feel like I've had an audience my whole life, like trying to make him laugh, trying to make him smile. I'm always trying to kill him. And when we're playing sports, and like growing up, like this is an obvious statement, but your childhood, when you actually think about who am I today and why, when I think about who I am today, I can directly correlate it to exactly how I grew up. You know what I mean? Like moved around a lot when I was younger, which means like you have to make friends over and over again.
Yep.
So what does that create? These skills, those skills that we use today. And And so when you say, you know, making people laugh and smiling or making people smile, that resonates, that hits home. And and I've thought a lot about that, like why? And that
Hmm.
I part of the reason. So it's
Yeah,
cool.
you're very likable. You're also highly adaptable, I've observed. And to your point, there must be these nuggets in your history where, like you said, like, oh, we had to move at certain times in our past. And I feel like it's always been so easy and fluid for you to make friends. In fact, to a place where maybe you have so many friends, and even balancing that could be have its own challenges, you know?
To- Totally. I mean, I don't um there's layers. There's layers. I don't know. It's tough. Sometimes having so many friends, it's like uh it's what's tricky. It's interesting you bring this up. Like I have a hard time texting people back sometimes.
Mhm.
And we've talked about this. Even us, best friends, close as heck, we have to check in on each other like, hey, and joke about like passive aggressive, like, you can call me. When's the last time you called me?
Mhm.
It's crazy. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters how many friends or it's like trying to hold space for all of your friends. It's difficult. It's hard.
Mhm.
So these days, you know, Drake says no new friends. I agree with that. It's kind of crazy. It's like there's only so much to go around, and you try to please everyone and make everyone happy, and but it's challenging. So it's definitely one of those things that I've had to do growing up. I think it's a survival defense mechanism, like creating friends, trying to be like, you know, being adaptable to your point. Very interesting stuff.
Totally. Yep. Okay. Moving on. The question on this show, amongst various questions, is where are you creating space right now? What comes to mind?
Um, my business comes to
Mm,
mind,
mhm.
and so I have an online business. I run it with my girlfriend, and we live together. And where I try to create space, like right now I'm in my studio, and
Which you call the space, right?
the space. It's called the space. Yeah, absolutely. So when I go to the space, when I go to the studio, Barbie will sometimes say like, you know, should I come in or do you want your space? I'm like, I want my
Mm,
space. And she's really good about that. She knows I'm the kind I need my time. Also the gym. You go to the gym, your headphones are in, you're in your own little world, and um, these things are important. I feel like I've lacked a little bit of some space regarding reading, some personal time, just because I'm so kind of obsessed with the business and we're renovating our home. So it's tough to find space, but it's also um, that's what comes to mind when you say, where are you creating space? I'm creating space here at the space.
mm, that's cool, man. So, to give people a little bit more context, you run a business called the Loom House with Barbie. You guys do really awesome work in terms of like staging these spaces with rugs and furniture. And then my perspective is, or my filter is, you're a little bit more high end. Like you sell cool stuff, unique stuff, different variety of rugs, especially for like designers and collectors and people who just appreciate nice things. Tell me a little bit about what does being an entrepreneur mean? Like, why do you do it? Because you have so many talents. You could go, and I've told you this many times. I'm like, dude, you could make a killing in sales world, doing things for companies that you believe in, but you've intentionally chose for years to kind of keep it small, keep it tight. And I want to know why.
The entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial journey for me started right out of college, and my views on it were different after I read the book, The 4 Hour Work Week, which
Mm,
we've talked about. This is early. If anyone's anywhere near our age and they're in the entrepreneurial world, you've heard of the 4 Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss, because we thought it was money, 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 and then we can go do everything and anything we want and buy everything. And then you read 4 Hour Work Week and you're like, oh, you don't want to be a millionaire. You want to live the life you think a millionaire lives.
Mhm.
They're on a slope skiing right now. They're kicking back and doing whatever they want. They're free. Their time. Um, that just made me view uh, freedom and business in a whole nother way. So, circling back to your question, what entrepreneurship means to me is doing something that you think is important in the world, serving others while serving yourself, and um, just uh, life on your own terms. Sort of.
Mhm.
I mean, that's why you're in it. I
Mhm.
work very hard, just like all the other entrepreneurs out there, because you're building something for yourself, right? Um, it's funny because I feel like I work more than some of my friends that have more traditional jobs. And I don't say that as a badge of honor. I'm highlighting it's a lot of work, but enjoying it is that heartbeat that I think um, makes entrepreneurship desirable.
Right, right. Yeah, I heard freedom. I heard lifestyle design in there. I heard that it doesn't always feel like work. And dude, I feel that from you because we've talked about business on different levels for many years. And I've never really felt I've never really felt stress from you, from your business. Like maybe occasionally, like the whole Etsy thing where, one of your main channels kind of got shut down, which is a big deal. That would cause anyone stress. But outside of that, I've never really felt from you like, oh man, the business is weighing me down. And I've felt that big time in my businesses. So I'm kind of giving you some props that either you manage it or hide it really well, or you just don't incur it, even though you do put work in.
You know what comes to mind when you say that?
Hmm.
It's a quote that I've been sort of obsessed with lately, and it is not wanting it is the same as having it,
Yeah,
or
that's good.
better than having it. Um, I don't want, at least I tell myself this, and if for the most part it's true, like people want big businesses, great. That comes with big money, big problems, big everything.
Hmm.
I like lean. I like
Yeah.
fast. You know what I mean? So I don't want like I can make way more money and I know that will come with way more stress. It's just kind of one of those relationships for the most part, or more responsibility. I like kind of keeping it small, not needing much, and just kind of enjoying it. I think that's where the lack of stress comes from.
Hmm. Yeah, I believe that. I've seen that from you. So that's a great quote. This kind of dovetails into something I wanted to bring up because it came into our world recently and just rocked me in all kinds of ways. And it's something that we get to jam on when we're hanging out, when we're climbing mountains, etc.
You're smiling, and I cannot wait to hear what this is.
Do you know what it is? The topic?
I have a hunch.
Oh, you have a hunch. So let's go back like, oh, this is probably 2 to 3 years ago. Like you have an annual visit, you come over. I'm just gonna like create a little story here. And we're just doing what we normally do, which is just clown and hang and just we're just with each other as best friends, just which is what I love. It's I told you that recently, like I never ever feel like I have to work to be with you, and that's a beautiful gift for me to have, and as part of your friendship. And you bring up this guy named Kapil Gupta, and yeah, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, is he a thought leader or something? And you just look at me like, you just got to hear this dude.
An
And
assassin.
so you put on this conversation, which happened to be with another guy named Naval Ravikant, who was in my world recently. So I was like, wait a second, you have something with Kapil and Naval? I was like, we have to listen to this now. So this is one of those like, oh, the timing, this is just what the universe wanted to happen right now, right? And after listening to that, for me, I realized why you were like, you just have to hear this because Kapil, the way that I've absorbed and filtered his words, his knowledge, his wisdom it's hard to describe. In fact, I had to pull up some notes I created to explain to people what I've learned from Kapil and applied to my life. And here are a few of the things. Then I'm interested what you've learned. So some of the stuff I wrote down after hearing some of his talks, reading most of the books that he's made available, because he's kind of a recluse. That's what's really interesting about Kapil Gupta. Like, it's hard to get to him because he's not a Tony Robbins. He doesn't go out and perform and make himself widely available, but he has written these books, which are usually written in this interesting narrative where he's kind of talking to a student in a like student master role, which is really fun to read. It's interesting to read. And so some of the key insights, because I've learned so many things. We have the power to become the God of our own lives. So after hearing him, I was like, oh yeah, it just landed in a different way, because I had heard that said other ways, but he speaks so direct, just truth, and boom, you feel it. At least I feel it. I'm like, wow. So another thing which wildly shaped my perspective or transformed my perspective: there is no right or wrong, good or bad. There simply is. And I've carried that through. I model that for my children. I hold space for that in a lot of contexts. Like, this isn't good or bad. It just is. And there's consequences of it, of our actions, etc.
That's huge.
You know, what else is good in here? There's no purpose to life. There's no grand plan. To intellectualize your life is to miss it completely. That's fascinating, right? So it's basically, it's like, if you're not paying attention to the journey, you're not living. That's a way to interpret that. Let me give one more, and then I kind of want to hear what I have to give. Two more, actually. The first is that parents don't raise children. Our children actually raise us. There's far more to learn from our children than we can teach them. And I'm sharing that one specifically because that has been so true for me. Like, until I read into this, I did think my role was to guide and lead my children and teach them things. And now, dude, it's almost the opposite. Like, I brag about how Everest and Sepia teach me things on a daily basis, and I'm very aware of that now. And the last one I wanted to share, because it just really lands with my lifestyle, is nature has all the answers. It does not make mistakes.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Big for me. But what about you? Like, you could build on those things, or if there's other stuff, because you brought him into my world and we have a lot of fun riffing. Sometimes we get confused. We're like, we don't even know. What would Kapil say? Who knows?
So that specific video that I had you sit down and listen to was it was on YouTube, and it was called Conquering the Mind. Okay, so
yeah.
Dude, Kapil, he's so direct. Like, it's almost like he makes space for his words, and he doesn't try to use too many words. He's very efficient, because the truth is efficient.
Yeah.
And he like sniper rifles words to your brain, and you're just like, am I dead or am I still alive? So the two things with Kapil is, one thing that I learned from him that I love is like less fluff. Because when you're sales, when you're a market, like I'm a fluffy dude. I like fluff. I like story, and there is absolutely a time and a place for that, in my opinion. But when it comes to some of these serious, like, hey, just sit down and let's just try to figure this out, the less fluff, the better, right? Okay, so also how much we are influenced by societal norms. That has shattered me a little bit, because I'm like, whoa, he says that truth, you can't really have truth when you start to involve another human being into your life, like, so clearly this is an internal game. This is going inward.
Yeah.
And but some of the things he says, it's so sobering that it's hard to bring into the real world, because you're like, how can I agree with that. That's crazy. You've just shifted 2 millimeter shift. Whoa, now what? So it's kind of hard to like take some of his stuff and transition it into our world today, which, to give you some props, you've done seriously so well, to the point like you've almost kind of made a life shift in your career, in your whatever, because that's what I love about you is you listen to something. Because for him, you're not the first person that I've had listen to him.
Right.
Some people need to listen to him over and over to get punched in the face, uppercut, uppercut, and then once you're like, oh my god, my jaw's on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
For you, listen to him, and then you're like, yes, I don't know what it is, and you buy his books, you do this, and then all of a sudden you're like spitting it to me, and I'm like, dang, are you Kapil? So,
Yeah.
those are the how society gets in the way of who we truly want to be. And I was thinking on this, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about this because this is just a normal kind of combo that we would have freaking 2 days ago, a week from now. But and I want to say it while it's fresh. One thing I was thinking about back to like children, what they can teach us is I was thinking the other day, like what makes us human? You know, like truth is what kind of tethers us together. But when we're kids, we hear we no when we're kids, we say the phrase like, hey, look at me, and hey, did you hear me? Are you listening? And okay, my turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about this, like those phrases are what we hear from kids or what we say as kids, but they're what we feel as adults
Yeah.
today, right? Like we just want to be seen, we just want to be heard, right? And that really resonated with me when I was kind of like thinking about this because I'm like, dang, kids say this stuff that adults feel all the time. And as adults, we just want to be seen, we just want to be heard. And kids aren't afraid to tell you that. And we kind of are. So that's kind of our truth in many ways is so Kapil kind of I was thinking about that. I was thinking so when you were talking about the kids, it kind of took me there. So
For sure, man. Yeah, that is another thing that I constantly remind myself and share with people when they're curious about my thoughts on parenting, which it was cultivated from Kapil and these conversations, is that if there's anything I think is highly important for me, and it's I think it's important because it allows for me to have the relationship with my children that I want, it's to make sure I see them. And it's something that I got from him, consciously or subconsciously, because I'm almost positive he wrote, your job is to see your children. And he has a whole other philosophy around attachment, which is really fascinating. And that's where it can start to fuck with you, especially as a parent. Like, what do you mean I'm not supposed to be attached to my kids? Like, and as it relates to what you shared, dude, about the directness, I brought this book into the Front Row Dads community. I shared it, and with some guys, it landed immediately, just like me. It's just they were in the right phase, the right season to read or hear this stuff and be like, oh. With others, it didn't, and they gave me really nice feedback. Like I either told them about it or gifted to them. They're like, "Yo, I started that and put it back down," like because it's heavy. To your point, it is. It's very deep. I see, that's the thing, the words won't even work. I'm just going to tell people, if you're interested, go read At Mamoon. It's an awesome book. I think it's worth the quick read, and if anything, it'll give you a perspective, might give you some healthy fear, etc. But
yeah.
I had to bring him up because he's not only has he given us some really cool stuff to discuss as homies, but like I said, he's impacted the way that I show up, the way that I parent, and I'm sure that we'll both have our own spin on this as we continue our journey. So props to Kapil.
Yeah, big time.
Big time. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, which kind of relates to this deeper inner work, but not as much. This is leaning back into some fun and some adventure, is mountains, climbing, pushing ourselves. So that's something you and I have had the pleasure to do together. You make at least an annual trip out here, sometimes more than one, and we like to go hit a 14er or get into a challenging hike. Our most recent adventure was a cold plunge at 10,000 plus elevation.
God.
And it's just so, for me, it's so fun to have someone who I feel likes to do this stuff just as much as me, if not more. Whereas even when I'm hiking with my family, like they're getting all the benefits, and we are a better unit when we're in nature and we come back. But I'm not sure that Gabrielle or my kids love it as much as I do. Whereas, like, dude, when we're hiking, it just feels like, oh, this is where we're meant to be. And
Totally.
so I wanted to kind of pick your brain on that. Like, I don't always ask you when we're done, like, how'd that feel? Why'd you do it? So I'm curious, like, what is it about climbing mountains or testing yourself in a cold plunge, challenging? I feel like you're willing to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that the whole comfort zone conversation is something that is so important to me, because and the fact is, I don't exactly know why. One thing that I love about you and our relationship is that you're one of the only other people that I know that will seek out not only discomfort but suffering,
Mm-hmm.
like in a way that's like that I would imagine most people look, you're like, what are you doing? When, why?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it. Like, who really wants to? That's why I love watching this whole cold plunge thing. People, like, I hate the cold. I despise cold water. Like, to get in it is not where I would be. I want to get in the sun.
Yeah.
But when like that moment where you're like, you're stripping down and you're like, "Ooh, that water looks cold," and I know you don't want to jump in, but you jump in, and here I am taking my clothes off. I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, you're like excited, and I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" As I'm taking my clothes off, and then jumping in and feeling it. I just feel like you just feel more alive
Yeah.
um when you're done suffering in a way, or when you're done getting out of your comfort zone. I remember writing a blog a trillion years ago when I read Tim Ferriss, and I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to write a blog and I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to get rich. I'm like, I remember writing something about getting out of your comfort zone.
Mm.
And visual that I always have, like a mountain is a good one, but one of the ones that I like, because I always think about our primal self. I do relate a lot of things back to our primal state, way back in the day, our ancient ancestors. Everything that we do today, everything we did back then was to survive, you know, to live longer. And everything we do today is the same. It's just in the modern world, and it comes out in so many different ways. But
Mm.
this picture of a campfire, and the flame is going on, it's a chilly night, and it's dark. And this fire represents warmth, it represents light, and it represents comfort.
Mm.
Okay. But, and that's beautiful because you need that. But one thing that I always think about is, but all the other good stuff that you don't know about is out there in the dark where it's cold. And I always think about uncertainty and discomfort make you grow. That's it.
Mm. Yeah.
And we're all here to grow. I just want to grow, and I feel like it's sharpening my tools. I feel like it's making me stronger. So every time I get uncomfortable, anytime I go and say, yeah, sign me up, I'll suffer, it's like, I know this is good for me, despite
Mm.
same reason why, you get sick, you take medicine or whatever. So that's, I think, where that comes from. How about you? I have to ask you, what about you? Because this is something that I admire about you, and that I would love, like, what is it about discomfort or suffering that you seek out?
Mm. Yeah, man. I align a lot with your answer. I think the simplest answer is the word growth. You just reminded me of a few things. One of my buddies, John Broman, has been talking a lot about range and expanding your range, expanding your capacity for things. This could be feelings, this could be um intellectual things, knowledge, whatever you want. It's like we all have a relationship to range or capacity in different areas of our lives. And as you said, when you push through the discomfort, when you push into the uncertainty, you just expand that range.
Mm,
You know more about the world, about yourself. And that's been really big for me lately, like really tapping into self wisdom, not as much about the external validation, like you mentioned earlier, but like, what do I know about myself and how I see the world?
mm.
So growth is, it's hard to not say that, because it really, a lot of it does come around growth. And then where I was going, as you said that, in my mind, I was like, well, shit, what's the point of plants? Not the point of plants, but what are they naturally designed to do? To grow. Like if they don't grow, they die. I just had an awesome podcast with another buddy named Rocky, where he was reminding the quote, a body in motion stays in motion, a body that rests decays, or something of that nature. It's so true. It's just, I mean, nature demonstrates that. So it's like, it doesn't mean you have to grow. Like, choose your own path, choose your own journey. But if you don't grow, in a way, you're kind of dying, or you're just decaying is probably a better word. We're all dying, but it's like growth gives us the opportunity to follow nature's pattern, I think. So I would come back to the answer you gave, just with a little bit more context there.
Love it. Yeah, that's, and mountains, shoot, that's all about. I actually did listen to one of your podcasts. I don't remember his name, but I loved the metaphors and the symbolism, because that's a lot of what I do with my business. Is it's all tailored around story and storytelling, and metaphors are a big part of that. And the metaphor you had with, you might remember, but like rivers, stars, mountains.
Oh yeah, my buddy Mike Wagner. Yes,
Yeah. I love that.
Mountains, rivers, and the cosmos. Yes.
Cosmos, exactly. And then I remember talking to you about that for like an hour, and we were going off in 20. It all came back to Kapil Gupta, truth. We're all gonna die. And it just is, and we're like, oh my God, okay. I got down.
Totally. Oh man, yeah. That is it. It's like there's this concept of mountains and climbing them, and feeling a sense of achievement, because I do feel that when I climb 14ers, but I also feel a different perspective when I'm up there. I feel disconnected from all the attachments. If we kind of pull some of Kapil's philosophy in, I feel very one with nature, with the world, in that I just took a journey up this thing that's so much bigger than me physically, and gave me this new perspective. I recall several times, Hemad, like being at the top of 14ers and looking down, and for moments being in this bliss of like, nothing down there matters. Like, I'm just here with this right now. And so I think there's something about being on top of high mountains that gives me a presence I don't feel anywhere else. What about you?
I couldn't agree more. Also, the perspective visually from a mountain, looking down, not only is your thought, none of that matters. It's like, I can't see any of it either. Like, it's not my vision,
right?
Out of sight, out of mind. And similarly, even when I would see, I like maps, and I like, every once in a while I'll see a photo of the Earth from like outer space, and I'm like, whoa, we are nothing.
Yeah, right.
This world, like, this building is huge, and I'm looking at the world that holds this building, and I'm like, that world is small, that building is tiny, and I am nothing. So I think part of being at the top of a mountain, it gives you such a wild perspective. And how often do we get to just sit there and, not just sit in nothing? How often? Last time I came, we sat at whatever 14er we did, and we were just sitting there, and we just kind of let the sun hit our face. We didn't say a word for like 5 minutes, and we just were, and it was beautiful. And then you bust up the Trader Joe's trail mix, and then I became like, come on.
Yeah. Side note: don't take them out hiking without snacks.
Dude, these are the best apples.
That's when you'll see stress. You'll see stress.
You want them out of stress? Make them hungry.
Okay, so for a second, let's go there. Your relationship to food. You enjoy food more than anyone I know. Anyone. And you also keep a very nice physique, you care about your body, you always have, and you've been in previous seasons where you could have been a fitness model. So, because I've seen some people that love food and they become kind of a prisoner to it, or they use it to escape, to abuse. But that's not your relationship. I've seen you since I've known you. You love food. Why?
Yeah, that's a great question. Damn, you're gonna go with the hard ones. I mean, well, look, if you want to talk about my relationship with food, you have to go back to when I was young, when we were kids.
Uh-huh.
My food back then, I was a big boy. And that's because of sponsor. I was sponsored by Mickey D's. So, I mean, like, it didn't help
Well, you
having,
wait, hold on a second though. You weren't big. You just had chubby cheeks.
no,
And you see what I'm saying? Because there's a difference. It wasn't like you were obese.
I'm going to show you a picture of the bakery rolls. It wasn't even a dozen, baker's dozen. Like, I remember seeing a picture of me, and I don't know why back then I wore these cut off shirts that you could see like at my hips. It's just crazy. I was like, I might have well been wearing a cape. But like, I have pictures where, I'm looking at the camera and my rolls are looking at the camera, and I'm just like, dude, I was a big boy. And
Hmm.
I don't know. Obviously, when you're a kid, you just want dopamine everywhere. So
Hmm.
you love taste and you're eating. I think, but part of it was because, um, I mean, growing up, my relation with food was crazy. It was always up and down. And then I hit like, middle school and seventh, eighth grade and whatever. And then I started caring
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, and but why do I love food? Today I look at food very differently. Obviously, I I look at food in many ways as fuel.
Hmm.
I am strict about eating garbage, uh, because I just don't want that poison in my body. I just know how bad it is for you. And then nowadays, I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see this is bad for you. That's bad for you. Don't do this. We've been lied to, and all of a sudden, it's like butter's good, olive oil is good, grapeseed oils and seed oils aren't. And
Hmm.
so it's just wild that as you learn, you start to adapt, you start to change. But the short answer is I really try to look at food and like I want to earn my food. So when we go do a big workout or we do a Spartan race or we do a whatever, I'm like, I just worked hard. I put my body through the ringer. Now I get a chance to love my body.
Hmm.
And and I just try to feed it,
Yeah.
clean, good stuff. But eating's fun, dude. What do you want? What do you want from me?
I believe that. I dig it too. Because I have a relationship with food as well. I'm still on the hedonic treadmill of always wanting a one-upping my meals and thinking about them early in the day. So I can relate. I also think there's something here in our past, since we have Iranian history, Iranian culture baked in to how we were raised. Like we lived in homes where food was a priority, and it was almost like frowned upon to be hungry. It's like we're gonna eat, we're gonna snack, we're gonna eat well. Think about those awesome gatherings we had as kids with our families. Like there was always an abundance of food.
And I think that's a lot of, and I think it spans past our culture too in other cultures. But obviously, it's like the grandmas showed their love through food.
Right.
Because when you cook for your family, or when I'm over and you cook, like you love and I know this, like you love to cook and then feed us. And as we're eating and enjoying it, it must make you feel good. Like I did this for you because I
Mhm.
love you. And we're over here like I love you too. And I think that's a lot of ways how, like you said, it's very important. It's the staple. It's one of the only times we all get together. I mean,
Yeah.
even today, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday strictly because it's food, family, friends, like the things
Right.
that feed your soul and feed your stomach. So,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's a really good point, dude. It's like if you really embrace the experience of food, then it goes back way, way, way thousands of years where it's like the intent is to break bread together, regardless of your beliefs or religion, whatever. It's like we're sitting, we're with each other, we're eating. And in the old days, they earned it big time. I don't think we earn it as much anymore, which is a whole different topic, but it's like there's still the act of preparing it, creating it, sharing it. So yeah, I suppose it's a mix of all those things, just our history, our relationship to it, and then just the experience that we were kind of raised to honor it. So all good
Yeah.
stuff. I actually want to shift back because while we were on the topic of getting out of our comfort zone, one of the things that's part of your journey, which as your friend, I find it really impressive, but I'm not as impressed by like the glamour of this. It's more that holy shit, Hemad did this. This was a hard thing, which is why I'm tying it back to challenging ourselves, getting out of our comfort zone, is the Dos Equis challenge. So I know this took place several years ago, but I'm curious if you still remember it, if you want to give people some quick context and an overview, because it was a really extraordinary thing.
I don't just remember it. I relive that in my head. I think about it every day. I
Okay,
swear to.
cool. Wow.
So for those, okay, so I have always loved branding, marketing, you know, sales, whatever, and advertising. So I follow as a youngster, I followed Dos Equis because I loved their marketing and their advertising. The idea of becoming the most interesting man in the world, I for whatever reason resonated with me, and I was like, that's what I want.
And when
So
was this? This was like what, 5 years ago, 7 years ago?
when did I do this?
Yeah, when did this take place?
Like 6 or so years ago,
Okay,
six or
cool.
7. So so I've always followed that their advertisements because I thought the most interesting man in the world. This is brilliant.
Mhm.
You know, always do this, but when I do, it's okay. So I followed them on social media, and I came across they were offering a grant to whomever would create a video and explain what would you do with $25,000. What would you do
Mhm.
with a $25,000 grant given to you by Dos Equis? And I'm like, I'm made for this.
And this
I'm
was
good.
in context, just to support you, this was in context of being the most interesting man or woman, most interesting man in the world. This was a male focused challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sure. No, not quite. It wasn't male focused, but it was through the lens of the company that brought to you the most interesting man in the
Okay.
world.
Yeah.
So it's like
Cool.
it has you can't just take 25K and live on a beach. Like
Exactly. Right.
okay, so what are you gonna do? So I don't know how I just like came up with these ideas of, oh, I'm gonna challenge myself. What can the first idea was I'm gonna break a world record like with a Dos Equis in my hand. That
Mhm.
was I was like, they're gonna love this. And so I tossed it around. I think I kind of talked to you about some ideas. I talked to my brother about some ideas, and I ended up doing what ended up being like the Eat, Pray, Love, but the male version of Eat, Pray, Love. So I would go around and challenge my mind, body, and soul.
Mhm.
Okay. I would challenge my body by summiting the highest freestanding mountain in the world, Mount Kilimanjaro. Then I would go challenge my soul by meditating in the foothills of the Himalayas with Buddhist monks. And then I would go to Tokyo, Japan, and challenge my mind over matter, eating like crazy fear factor type foods. That was the idea. I hired a guy on Craigslist to shoot the video. It was kind of when I didn't have that much money. I was like, hey, I'll give you like $50 and my grandma will cook some Persian food. And he was like, yeah. I'm like,
Yes.
so um so he shoots the video. I have all the shots in my head, and then we create this video. He edits it, and then I send it over to Dos Equis. And they call me back and they're like, Hamad, we loved your video, and we're gonna take you to become a finalist.
Mhm.
So it's a nationwide competition, 3 finalists. I'm one of them. Like amazing. They're like, there's 2 other videos that we're considering. Obviously, everyone's saying they're going to do something different, and they say the winner is chosen by whoever gets the most votes in 3 weeks of their video. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, this is perfect. Great. So 3 weeks I have to like promote this, have everyone see the videos and vote for me. I went on this campaign. I feel like I was running for mayor. I was bartending at the time. Everyone that came up to the bar, like, can I get a Jack and Coke? I'm like, can I get your phone? You get to vote for me. And I call in all my favorites, rugby team, all my traveling from people I know all over the world, whatever. And they call me back 1 week later and they're like, we're already looking into your trip. It wasn't even close. You won by a landslide.
Wow.
1 week, like, they're like, yeah. I'm like, what? So that's kind of story, long-winded story of me going and having this 25-day immersive experience of challenging my mind, body, and soul by summiting Mount Kilimanjaro. I took the longest route, the La Mosha route. It's a 7 or 8 day route. I did it in 5 days because I was on freaking cloud nine, and I was just marching.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Kilimanjaro thing, that's why mountains are so important to me. It that place is so alive, and that mountain is alive. I mean, nature is alive, but boy, she spoke to me, and like, that was incredible. And the people of Tanzania are like the kindest people ever. I thought Iranians were hospitable. Man, I was just the best time of my life. And then I went to the Himalayas, and um meditating with a monk,
Mm.
like 5 feet in front of you. And it wasn't, I was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a silent retreat and I'm going to meditate until I friggin' start, levitating. And like, just dumb. And he was like, he had me explain what my goals were and this and that. Look, I had everyone in the world freaking vote for me. They want to see this documentary or this video of me doing all this stuff. So I need to like really put myself in these crazy positions. I need to like do a 7 day meditation retreat and meditate for like 10 hours a day. And he just looks at me like, are you okay?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you need to create some space. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So, um, so long story short, he guides me through these meditations. I learned so freaking much. Meditating is so different than what I originally thought it was. That was the hardest part of my 3 day, or my three kind of chapter trip. And then I went to Tokyo, Japan, and ate insane foods like adori don, which is like live octopus, and like twitching prawns, and just these crazy things that we look at as weird, but it's normal in parts of the world. And but it's crazy. I wasn't used to it. So it's like crazy. You're holding something that's twitching in your hand. You're like supposed to eat it. Oh boy. But anyway, that's the whole journey. So
Wow. What was the
that's,
hardest of the three? Which challenged you the most if you had to pick?
yeah, it would be the meditating,
Okay.
because I'm an active dude, and I was coming from the camp of like, I don't want to sit down and read a book. I'd rather do push-ups and sweat and move.
Yeah.
And I really was so like go go go, and this is just coming off of the Kilimanjaro journey, so I'm like amped up, and here I am sitting in a meditation hall at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, this is so hard. I can't stop thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And um sitting still, and just being quiet, and it's like all these things that were just challenging for me. But through the days there, it got easier. I read a book at one of their libraries that really helped me. And for those, and just in case it's valued anyone else, when you're meditating, they say focus on your breath. It's hard for me. It was hard for me to focus on your breath. So I read a book, and the cheat was count your breaths, because
Mm.
when you're counting, you can't really think of anything else,
Right.
and counting doesn't take a lot of work, and you're still in the meditation. So you count, and there was a time where I counted past 100. I was like, I got to 100. I'm like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden 101, 102, and I slowly stopped counting, and I was like in this other space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, I entered a different place, and it was beautiful. And I was so excited to tell my monk at the food hall. I was like, when you meditate, and you, like, you enter a different space, and like everything's so you're so alert. And he's like, no, it's different for everybody. Don't ever expect that to happen again. Not in a discouraging way, but one of the
Right.
lessons that the moment you expect, disappointment will follow.
Uh,
You know, and I was like, oh, okay. So
yeah.
that's the long-winded trip.
Dude,
I
that is
think about it, hey,
awesome.
dude.
It's awesome. I think your experience with the meditation being the most challenging is also a reflection of all of us. We all well, not all of us, but I'm saying it's very clear that today the world is challenged with being still, with being with themselves. This is why meditation has become so trendy. It's like for centuries it was practiced in all different cultures, and then it just became forgotten, and we became this race that is literally racing from one thing to the next, etc.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. Yeah, and I think that oh, it's so your journey, your adventure there is so cool. I can't help but think right now, Hamad, that had you done that today, it would be a little bit different because you did it in the like I'll call it the pre dopamine hooked social media era. Like people were just getting into social media at that time, or at least just using it in a more uh, understood way. Whereas now, like who knows? Not to inflate your ego, but it's like had you done something like that now, it'd be interesting to see. And I'm curious if you want to do more like that because I don't even know much about this world, but it's it seems like we're hooked on watching people test themselves. And we were just watching this cool show last night on Disney. It's with this guy named Hazen Audell, and he goes into nature and does these cool things, and it's pretty cool where they capture him and he's barefoot a lot of the time, and he reminded me of you, or vice versa. It's just like he even has a nice long hair with man bun, and it's just like, oh, this dude is testing himself. He's very rooted in being with the natural land and animals because he has a background in biology. But I was just thinking, I was like, man, watching Hamad do this because of your personality would be more fun. And I'm curious, does that world intrigue you?
Ali, you can inflate my ego anytime you want. Uh, it is the one thing, not the one thing. It's not the one thing. It is one of the things that really sets me on fire.
Mm,
Is traveling, is experiencing newness in real time. And if there's a camera there watching and documenting it all, hell yeah.
hmm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, we talk about traveling all the time. We talk about all of that all the time. It's one of the things, boy, I want to go right now. I'm about to book a ticket, man.
Dude, you also strike me as someone who raises their game when they're being watched.
Interesting. Yeah. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know.
Because does that mean I ultra care about what people think, or does that mean um, I'm good under this pressure that we put
Right.
on our? Maybe I don't know. Uh, I I think whether I'm I elevate my game or not, I'm just such a people person. Like I love human beings. So when I am with one, whether it's selling an awesome antique rug or whether it's meeting a tour guide that's going to have to put up with me and my questions for the next week, I'm just so in the moment. And
Mhm,
maybe down to presence. I mean, when a
mhm.
camera's on, huh, you're present. It makes you present,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. It's a
purple
spotlight for sure.
spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt that from you for years. Like you do bring it all full circle. Like you do have an extraordinary ability to hold space for people. Um, Even when you may not want to, or perhaps, as you mentioned, like relationships give you energy by default. But I've seen you hold space for people that are challenging. And that's a gift because I do not have that gift, as you know. Like
You definitely.
the introvert in me starts to shut down quickly, and my energy it just dives when I'm in an environment where I'm like, okay, I've gotten enough. More people can this is the anti it is the opposite. It can just deplete me. Whereas I feel like all of this like spotlight being being testing your comfort zone, being in the presence of others, it just elevates you, dude. Like you said earlier, it seems like it brings you alive.
It does. And equally to you, thank you for the compliment. But for you, when I think about you and your personality and how you are, because I've known you for 30 something years now, it's like you have an amazing way of, and I'm not sitting here trying to compliment you. I don't want to compliment you, but I have to. It, it comes, you have like your work and how you serve people. It's almost like you have to recharge. That's how I look
Yeah.
at it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done for now. I'm going to go back into what I do best, so I can come back out and serve people in my most powerful way.
Mm-hmm.
I think you serve people in an unmatched, powerful way, and it comes from, we were talking about this earlier, it comes from you caring about others. So
Mm-hmm.
like, does it always come back to others? Like, what are we here on this planet for? We're here, we cannot live without each other. We're here to serve one another and serve ourselves. And that's the piece that I think, that's the journey I think you're on now. And I think it's so important that we do have to think about self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that cliche, the airport, the
Yeah.
flight thing. That's so important. That is so real, and it's a cliche for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and sometimes people like me have to remember that, because I'm so out. I'm like, okay, what about in? So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. I received that gift. I appreciate that. It lands. It also connects back to why I think Kapil fascinates us, because he gives you that opportunity to really isolate and be with yourself and be like in tune with your core, the God within you, which to your point, you need to show up. At least I need to show up and serve others. So yeah, that's beautiful how that just all wove together. All right. We are getting close to the hour mark. And what is left unsaid? Anything you want to share as it relates to the topics, just your birthday? Tell us that. Let's end there. Tell us a little bit about how you celebrated your 37th birthday yesterday.
well, first of all, happy belated birthday to you. I've said that 900 times in the last 2 days. How did I celebrate it? It was on a Saturday. I celebrated it by uh, spending time with people I love. The night before, we had a dinner, family dinner, um, food, family, friends.
Here we go. Yeah.
And then the day of my birthday, I actually came into my space to get some space,
Mm-hmm.
and um,
Did you do a
did a
cold
little.
plunge?
Say what?
Did you do a cold plunge?
I did not do a cold plunge. No,
Hmm.
Ali. No. I didn't have you sitting there like, get in the water. Okay. Um, but and then I went off for a nice dinner. Uh, and I went to bed at 9 like 35 p.m. and it was glorious. I
Mm.
played basketball. The
Oh.
thing I forgot. I played basketball, worked out, and then I just came here for a little bit of some tidy up, some alone time, some me time, and then I went out, had a lovely dinner with my girlfriend, and we just enjoyed ourselves, and then we went to bed, and it was a perfect way. It was a perfect way to enjoy the day. Seriously, I got
Mm.
the things I loved in, and I try to do that every day. I'm trying to live every day like it's my birthday, man.
Yeah,
How,
I feel
what
that.
what'd you do?
Well, before we talk about what I did,
Oh,
this is cool because you just shared a reflection of a lot of the things we discussed. There's a lot of self-care in there, there's a lot of connection. You also hit on something we missed. So you are by far one of the most likable, adaptable, even humble people I know. We've already talked about this, but what we didn't talk about is that there's also a fierce competitor in Hemad that shows up, and it sometimes shows up when we're playing sports. Would you agree? like,
uh,
like I kid you not. I don't know. It was 3, 4 years ago. We had this cool, small little Brothers Olympics uh, event that was me, you, our brothers, and then another set of brothers. And it's in that while we were playing basketball and our team was beating yours, and there's a few other moments in our history where I've seen you and like you change. So the lovable Hamad goes away, and this like gladiator comes in, and it's like, I'm going to achieve or win or whatever the game. And dude, I have to recognize that because it's this beautiful part of your personality where, like I said, it is this shift. And when it happens, I'm like, oh shit, that Hamad is here now.
Are you looking at a mirror? Because you're the exact way.
Don't spin it on me. No, don't spin
Dude,
it on me.
I'm
No.
not gonna exact or spit it on you. Don't
Because
worry.
I bet this Hamad showed up in rugby matches too.
What Hemad? The
The
gladiator?
gladiator, yes.
Look, everything is contextual, and we are so dynamic as humans that Jordan Peterson says something along the lines of like the most dangerous monsters in the world are or something along these lines. No, the most what is the word? The most well balanced or the most fearful or loved, whatever human in the world is the one that has the capacity to kill but doesn't. Like you have to we have that capacity to be so many versions of ourselves. Shit, I have 10% on my battery, my phone. That hold on. So sorry. So we have the capacity to be so many different versions of ourselves. Mine, I definitely become a little warrior when I'm trying to win.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to like, I think it goes back to you're testing yourself and like, what are you made of? Like, you're going to push yourself harder here, or you're going to let, you're going to run faster because whatever it is. I mean, we lost because of Hassam anyway, uh, but definitely, whenever the next Brothers Olympic is, I've been training for this,
Yeah.
so I'm looking
I've been
forward to it.
I've been
But
thinking about
but you're similar too, and you know what I love about, I love to see that side come out of you, but you have this really interesting way of, if there was like a cartoon bubble of above your head of like, I'm extremely like, I'm so fierce right now, but somehow you can bring it back to like center very quickly. I don't know how you do. Do you notice that about you, or do you think that?
I'm well, thank you. It goes back to this concept of range. Recently, yes, but I feel like when I was younger, yeah, in the same context, the competitor would come out in sports, especially if I felt like something was unjust, which is just talking about with Amir, my brother, like he really has that we've been
Oh
paying
yeah,
attention to. Like when he's one for justice. But because when I feel like I've become the most flamed, it's like, oh, you're threatening my friends or my family, or you just did something in this match that is not cool. Like you're breaking the rules, you're cheating, or you're trying to like pull a skeet ass move. And so, yeah, but to your point, I do think I can calm it fast, and it doesn't
yeah.
come out a lot anymore. So I think that's just a reflection because I've spent so much time softening in some ways or just being a lot more in tune with my heart, my soul, whereas usually it's my ego that fuels that flame, that competitor that's like, get out of the way. And so, but it's so cool because you're right, we can both relate to that it happens in sports, and it is a different version that most people don't see of us.
Mine still sprinkles in business a little bit,
Is that right?
unfortunately. Yeah, because I'm like, I'll see some of my competitors. I'm like, but at the same time, I'm
Yeah.
like, there's enough to go around for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's an interesting one. You don't see it in business, do you? For you, like the competitive or no?
No, no, not really.
I
But
I, I
I can
you don't.
understand why it would come out though. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, that is a cool place to wrap. Oh, to answer your question, I had a very similar birthday as you. We just kind of I laid low with my family. I actually really needed to rest and recharge. It's been a very active beginning of the year, a lot of competing priorities and projects. So it was fun to just be with them. We took a hike out in Red Rocks, so got some good nature in, a nice dinner together. And like I said, we can't ask for more than that. It kind of hits on all the things that we mentioned today, except for climbing a mountain and jumping in a cold plunge.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it with one Kapil quote. It's
Yes.
kind of like the last one that you said about nature, but one thing that it just resonates with me. I'm going to paraphrase, but he says, um, what does he say? He says that rain doesn't try to fall, it just
Oh.
falls. So nature is so effortless, and the stark difference between human beings and nature is we want to control, and nature
Yeah,
just is. You know what I mean?
just
That's
it.
when that's one that really stuck with me.
That is a good one. Yeah, we'll let people sit with that.
Cool.
Ahmad, thank you. This is cool. It was overdue and it was everything we needed and more. So I appreciate you for creating space for this. I appreciate you for being in my life. And I know that I'm gonna I'm gonna be able to see you in a week. We'll see if you book that ticket. So we might have some by the time this airs, we might be hanging out in Denver. So
Would love that. Hey, I love you so much. Thank you.
thanks, brother. Until the next time.
Talk to you soon.